Welcome to Reality Redemption. I'm MJ, and
I'm Snow, and we got the funk up this morning before the show.
Yeah.
Thanks to the help of one of our friends, Peter Grumbles, and his Bootsie's sDeltaFunk spices and sauces.
Yeah, we finally got Peter on. Hey, how you doing, Peter?
I'm doing great. I'm so happy to be here with you guys. I've been following your podcast since inception, and I'm a big fan of both of y'all, especially Snow. Anybody that's a Teamster always has a special place in my heart, and I actually have a really good Teamster story. In my former life, I was a operative, and one of the campaigns I worked on was a raise the wage campaign. And we went to Pittsburgh, and I was working with United Food commercial workers at the time on this campaign. And what the whole focus of the campaign was to convince Walmart to raise the wage from $7 an hour up to $12.
Which needs to be done, probably still.
Well, they've done it. I mean, they've made a really good commitment to it. But this was back in the dark ages, when they were just like, hell no, we're going to pay our people as least amount of money as possible. And so we were there, the service industrial workers were there, and we're all out in Pittsburgh, and we're in front of this corporate store for Walmart, and we're kind of doing this marching as a show of solidarity of the workers that went on strike. And all of a sudden, the Teamsters come. And they didn't just come alone, but they come. Well, you might not know it. They do.
Brought it.
They have a fucking presence.
They come a lot, So right next to Pittsburgh is the Allegheny County plant.
Okay.
And that is where they make the Mack trucks.
Okay.
And so there was a row, like you're just sitting there, and then all of a sudden, like the ground starts shaking. And you're like, what is that? And you see this row upon row of Mack trucks coming, and there's like Teamsters marching with their banners.
Teamsters.
and there's police officers out there, and they're just like, holy shit, and like all the horns come on. I mean, it was like that scene in like Lord of the Rings when they blow the horn, and all the torches light, and it was probably like the moment. It was like the Battle of Helm's Deep when Gandalf shows up. These guys are just rolling with these Mack trucks that are shaking the ground, and they blow these horns, and the windows start rattling and stuff like that, and it was just like the coolest thing ever. So.
That's so awesome. I love my brothers and sisters. In solidarity, you all.
Absolutely. Yeah, they were great people. I worked with the 878 in Little Rock, and they were fantastic partners.
Oh, and Little Rock is right where like Walmart headquarters is, isn't it? Or no, wait.
It's actually in Benton.
That's right. It's Benton, Arkansas. Okay.
I've been to a few protests there. Dogs were present. There's a large police force. That's where they have the corporate shareholders meeting every year.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So it was kind of a slow news week this week.
Yes.
As you just got some news coming on in.
Yeah, I got another
Would you call it slow though this week?
No, I mean...
This was a heavy week. This is probably the heaviest week for America.
Let's start off with the good news that happened. I mean, because it started off good.
And we didn't even get to celebrate, man. But we have the 20th. We can wait till the 20th.
We had about 2 hours where we were kind of like, awesome, we got the Senate.
Yes! Like, I was crying my liberal tears. I've been collecting them in jars if any conservatives want to taste them. Now, they are tears of joy, though. I must warn you.
So picked up 2 seats in the Senate from Georgia.
Yay! Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff. Yay!
Oh, and you got an email from one of them, didn't you?
I got an email from both of them thanking me. And guess what I did not get at the end of the email? And ask for a donation like you do, like I hear you do from like 45. He's always trying to get more money. No, this was just a straight up email, and it was talking about how we're going to work together and bring everyone together, and we're going to get like the stimulus out to the people who fucking need it, who have been waiting too long. So I cannot wait for the 20th because people need their fucking $2,000. All right. There are people who are suffering. And the only other thing I'm going to say is that it was the best $250 I've ever spent in my life.
Then suddenly it all went just absolutely batshit nuts after that.
Yeah. I couldn't believe that I lived in America.
I have never seen anything like that in my life.
I don't think it's happened since like the British or whatever. Isn't it like 1812? Is that the date?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They burned the Capitol down in 1812. Yeah.
Yeah. So
the only time it's been breached since. So.
But and let's make this clear. So the British burnt down the American Capitol.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So the folks who stormed the Capitol, certainly you were not acting as Americans. I'm just going to tell you that. I mean, like, you were behaving like another country's citizens.
When I saw the shots, I was at work all day, and I had people texting me, and they were like, "Oh, have you seen what's going on?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm catching little bits and pieces of it, And I was just really focused on work. And then since the election, I've been trying to purge myself of because I was on such a diet of 24-hour political feed, and I've just kind of gotten back into my Rolling Stones content, and I'm just like, oh, that's what I'm gonna. No more. I'm going to listen to if it's not your podcast, I'll listen to no more political podcasts, but I'll listen to my music on Spotify or something like that, or Pandora.
Totally feel you.
I got home, and then I saw the pictures, and the first image I thought of was that it reminded me of an embassy being sieged, over in Iraq, or Iran. So
somewhere where there's complete turmoil happening, where things are really fucked up and haven't been right for a long fucking time. I mean, that's what I felt like.
Right. Yeah, it was heartbreaking, and I think it's getting worse and worse as more details come out. I think the fact that they found incendiary devices throughout the Capitol, that some guy had Molotov cocktails in his truck, and then the one that's most disturbing is the guys with the flex cuffs, zip ties that were running around. And those things really only have one purpose, and that's to secure people if you were going to take them as prisoner, and so, that's just bad.
Yeah, what would have happened if Nancy Pelosi was actually in her office at the time?
No shit.
Yeah.
At least that guy got arrested.
And also they murdered a police officer. I mean, the investigation is still going, but it's been said that the reason that guy had to go to the hospital was because he got his head bashed in or something, and blood clots on the brain.
They beat him with a fire extinguisher,
right?
Which is never good,
No, you're probably not going to survive that. And it's like, I thought y'all loved the police. I mean, what's
for Brian Sicknick?
I don't even think they know what they're doing, and now they're going to spend the rest of their lives in prison.
It was, I think Trey Crowder, he called it the classic example of what happens when a dog finally catches the car.
I love that guy.
They just had no idea what to do. They were like, yeah, we're in the Capitol. And I've been to DC, I've worked in DC. I think you knew that there was never any chance that they were going to catch anybody because there's tunnels underneath the Capitol. And there's a train system, and they just go down into the tunnels, and then they're in the train and they're gone. But I think, there's a couple things that are really disturbing. One of them is the fact that you see guys marching with we stormed the Capitol on January 6th, 2021 shirts. And you're like, these guys had time to make shirts. Like, why weren't we better prepared?
Right.
For this, you know?
And that's what was most upsetting too, is like, so they even have the proof of that, and the fact that everyone knew they were there for a few days. I'm sorry, but where was the National Guard? Where was the tear gas? Where was the rubber bullets? Yeah. Where was the knee on the neck? Where was all that shit? Where was that?
Could you imagine if that was during the Black Lives Matter protest? What would have happened?
Yeah.
And
I'm a big fan of people's right to protest. I think that's very essential to our Constitution.
All of us are.
However, this was pandemonium. They
broke in. They looted. They've got pictures of them with the podium and everything. It's like you guys even incriminated yourselves. They're stupid on top of all of it.
And if you've ever been to DC, it's a beautiful place. That's where the Smithsonian is. That's where our Capitol is. The reflecting pool. There's so much history there. It's the head of our country.
I like the Abraham Lincoln thing too.
The Lincoln Memorial. The Jefferson Memorial. It's all there. And
the Teamsters building is not far from there either. I went there.
No, it's the AFL-CIO headquarters. All of them, they're all there. I know that there's some comments about, this is just what happens at any protest, but this isn't like a Starbucks stand-up, or a pop-up, you know what I mean? This isn't like, somebody came in and looted like the subway store and stole some loaves of bread. This is a sacred institution that is not only the seat of our country's power, but also the symbol. And it was really sad. It would be like the equivalent of somebody going into like, some temple in Egypt and just like destroying the place,
Right.
So. Yeah, I was in Washington once, and this is back when Ted Kennedy was a senator, and I saw him speaking in front of a bunch of reporters, and I started going up the steps because he was my representative. I wanted to hear what he was saying. I was in Washington. Hey, this is cool. Ted Kennedy right there in front of me. And I was stopped halfway up the steps by armed security. I'm like, what are you doing? I'm like, I just want to hear him. Let me see your press credentials. I'm like, I don't have any. Well, you can't be here. How were they allowed for this to happen?
Yeah, I think there's got to be. I think there's going to be a lot of investigation. On to the TikTok of how this happened. I saw the Washington Post story where they kind of put it together. It seemed like one side of the building, the cops were just letting them come in and weren't stopping anybody. It seems to be, there's some reports that there was some coordination, that they, not only did they go in and break into the building, but they went to the parliamentarian. There's two parliamentarians in the Senate and also in the Congress, and they went back into those areas and looted the place and destroyed it. They made off with a computer server and several computers.
Yeah, I heard that too.
Which is also weird. I mean, that's just not something like, oh, hey, look what I found. I mean, that's like, and if you've ever been there, it's easy to get lost because it's a very large place. And I know staffers that have been there for several years and they still don't know where to find the parliamentarian's room. So the fact that they kind of we're able to make a beeline into that area. And also just for, a security, one of the other projects I worked on was, I was a fellow with the Truman National Security Project. And, this would have been really easy for, a foreign actor, whether it's from Russia or from Iran or from China, to kind of blend in and then be able to go in and hit some of these places.
Right.
And I don't want to get to like the series Homeland.
Conspiracy theories, yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, but it's
but I have one. Yeah, I just have a quick question about that whole the computer server thing. Wouldn't somebody have had to have told them where that was? I mean, how would you know right where to go? Like to get that?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, again, like.
And I don't want to get conspiracy either, but yeah.
I think there's going to be, I think probably a long investigation. I hope there is, to see if there was any coordination, and if there were people that were on the inside, whether it's with the police or whether it's with other congressmen, be it Democrat, Republican. I think they absolutely should be held accountable.
Well, what about holding accountable? What about the words that the president was saying right before that happened? He said that he was going to be marching with them. Donald Trump Jr., Rudy Giuliani, Ted Cruz, Paul Gosar, they were all making these incendiary comments.
All the lunatics. Yeah. So here's my question for that. Since you are a lawyer, I've been thinking about this, and and we were also just recently discussed conspiracies, and now I have a new one because I'm trying to figure out now if Donald Trump is Kaiser Soze and he is going to verbal Kent his ass out of this, claim insanity on all this shit. And they're kind of handing it to him because they keep saying he's mentally unfit, which he is. He is fucking mentally ill, but is he going to get off on all this stuff? Is he not going to be able to be held responsible for anything that he's ever done?
The people that I'm listening to are for one of them is James Carville, who taught law at LSU, Louisiana State University, and of course he was a former boss of mine.
Go Tigers!
The Raging Cajun.
I have family that like that school too. Yeah. Yeah.
One of the things he points out is just it really depends on our stomach for these things. One of the things that I think Trump has done is he's really wants to make it clear that if we try to hold him accountable in any type of legal way, that he could just snap his fingers and his people will go out there and cause a bunch of chaos. And so it's kind of the old question of, is the juice worth the squeeze? I think that he really overplayed his hand. And I think you're going to see the one thing that I would watch is to see what a lot of the state attorney generals do. And you've already seen where the FBI overnight has been tracking a lot of these guys down. They've identified the two people that had the zip ties. One of them is a former Air Force, he was an Air Force captain. Mm-hmm. And the other guy was just a random bartender from Nashville.
I'm going with you. I'm out of work. The Covey's here. So
he was there with his mom. So you got this bartender,
even better,
and head to toe, camo, and then he's got his mom that's there with him, and she's got a plate carrier, vest on. And
she probably had to drive him like Rittenhouse's mom.
Well, I'm surprised some of the nuts here in Kingman didn't go out there.
I bet you some of them did.
Because
I thought that one guy did.
There are people that
give it time,
train for this stuff.
One of the guys did though, because there was already our friend that works for one of the new, I don't want to say his name, but works for one of the media outlets. Yeah. Posted a story about how he had gone there. He had gone and he was talking about how he's one of those idiots. He said he was there and everyone was peacefully protested and he was just part of the peaceful protesters and he is not one of them who went into the Capitol, but he highly suspects that it was Antifa disguised and they were the ones that went in there. So I'm going to say it on our podcast right now. So all of you guys are in case anyone's listening that might think it's Antifa, or let's explain what Antifa is. Antifa is anti-fascism. So if any of you out there think that Antifa might have had anything to do with this, you need to contact the FBI. Okay, and you need to turn them in then because the FBI has asked for tips. Now, I am going to warn you, if you make false claims to the FBI, you can get in trouble for that too. So go ahead. You have the information now.
Well, and this is the reason the president was banned from Twitter and Facebook this week too, because inciting further violence over the next 12, how many days do we have left? 12 days? Less than that, probably 10, 11 days. Anyway,
and just a legal point of order here is that the First Amendment protects your right to speech from government censorship. Twitter is a private business. Facebook is a private business. Mm-hmm. Twitch, all these other groups, even Shopify has banned Trump. They're all private businesses, and if they want to do that, they have they absolutely have the ability to do that. I will say that I think it was like Laura Ingraham made the point that this is exactly what China would do. Actually, what China would do is they would force private companies like Twitter to carry the government's message. So,
right.
So yeah, I think it's not communism. This is actually capitalism. If a person is bad, if a person is bad for your brand, you get them away from your brand.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Do you think that maybe some people actually are realizing that capitalism isn't all that it's cracked up to be? Do you think there might be a breakthrough? I'm not saying capitalism isn't great, but maybe there should be a blend.
Well, yeah, Peter, you're a lawyer. Could say something happened? People died. Could Facebook or Twitter be responsible if these actions were organized on that platform?
I don't know what you'd have to have somebody that really knew what federal communications law is. I know I'm in the state of Tennessee. I know in the state of Tennessee, if you're in a bar and there's a bar fight and somebody gets hurt at your bar, it's very difficult to prove that the bar is responsible for the injuries that happened because they're not responsible for every single person that's inside the bar.
Right.
But the caveat is that if they had prior knowledge that there was going to be a fight at the bar and then they did nothing to prevent that, then yeah, they can be held accountable. And so I don't know. I think a lot of these companies like Facebook will say, well, again, everybody knew they were doing this. I think they'll say, look, we're just a messaging board. People. It would be so much as like. It'd be like holding a telephone pole responsible because nobody found your missing cat. You know what I mean? So I think that they'll probably get off on that. I think more so is what these guys really want to avoid is they want to avoid the government coming in and kind of managing them, in any sense or way. They don't want.
They hate regulations.
They don't want the scrutiny, and right now in Europe, the EU is looking at whether companies like Google, companies like Facebook, have suppressed competition, and so that's what they really don't want. You know what I mean? They don't want that kind of stuff. So this definitely. So let me put it this way: it's in their best interest to be as cooperative as possible, and it seems like they are.
Once you got past the Antifa part of it. The other thing people were saying is that I was getting on my end. Well, what about Portland? How come you weren't outraged about that? And my argument was, well, I'm all for protests on either side. Yeah, go out. Peaceful protests. Yes, go out. Get your feelings known. Stand up for what you believe in. I draw the line at the rioters and the looters, and I've expressed that before. In Portland, because it takes away from the message. Now the focus is on the destruction. It's not the point you're trying to get across. I can see why people are angry on both sides, but definitely I don't stand for the rioting and looting. And they say, well, how come you weren't outraged about Portland? Well, then how come these people aren't outraged about what happened at the Capitol?
I know.
I mean,
both ways.
These are the people that claim to be the patriots.
Right?
Yeah.
We're all, they always call us traitors. Like,
you always get that whataboutism, and I 2 points. Like, I think my first point would be, is that intent matters. If the intention, in Portland is to basically call attention to racial profiling, to police abuse, to brutality, then that's one thing. I think with the people where the difference comes in with what happened at the Capitol and what also happened at multiple other capitals, including Georgia and Arizona, is that the intent was to go in and usurp the government and overthrow the government. And these are democratically elected leaders, and that's just completely different,
Exactly.
So they're not the same. And then number two is like, is anybody who says, well, yeah, how could they be Antifa? You know what? They're not being serious. Don't take them seriously. They're being. It's a bad faith argument, And I would just like roll my eyes and look the other way.
They're doing exactly what Donald Trump has taught them. Blame someone else. I don't want to be held responsible for it. Blame somebody else. This is what we do. This is what their Orange King has taught them. But yeah, and another point to the BLM protests. Those are protests about equality. This was not a protest about equality. This was no protest about equal rights. There was nothing that had to do with that. It was a takeover.
Right. It was a lesson in how decentralized governments work, though. I mean, I think I think we're all raised on watching TV and these narratives, like The Patriot, with Mel Gibson charging across and like, hey, we're gonna win our independence by taking defeating Cornwallis at Lexington, it's really more complicated than that. Nobody just wins after one battle. There's this whole thing of, the fact that England had to truck everything over from England to the Americas. There's these residual costs, and, not to mention the fact that England spent the next 100 years trying to economically suffocate America. The war wasn't over. It wasn't decided then. These guys went into the Capitol and they thought that just by taking the Capitol over, that they somehow won the game. And meanwhile, we're a decentralized government. We have 50 states. It doesn't work that way. I felt like the woman off that Geico commercial. Like, this is not the way it works. I
know, and it's sad because I see where they're coming. Okay, those movies make them feel all patriotic and whatnot, and they think, and things might have been like that back then. But what they don't realize is the people that they think that have their back don't fucking have their back. We're run by business now. We're run by big business. And they're not understanding that. It's like there is no something coming in to take away your rights. That's all business, and that's all the rich. It is not what you think it is. It's not people who look different than you that's doing this to you. Times aren't like that anymore.
Yeah.
Well, and
it's like that. I'm sorry. Go ahead, MJ.
Well, it's the person that fired them up. It got them into a froth to get them to march onto the Capitol. All those people then abandoned them. Where did Trump go? Where did Giuliani go? Where did Donald Trump Jr. go?
They're not going to stick around. Yeah, they did their job. They threw the gasoline on the fire. Let it burn.
History is full of hucksters. The one that really pops into my mind is in Arkansas. There's this beautiful, beautiful hotel called the Crescent Hotel, and at the Crescent Hotel, a guy from Iowa who said he had the cure for cancer opened up a business there, and people from all over the country would go there to get cancer treatment, and he didn't have any cure. I mean, he didn't know what he was doing, and he was doing stuff like operating on people and then filling their brain with like sawdust and stuff like that.
I've heard of that.
And it got so many people started dying, and they didn't want to call any attention to the fact that they were just bringing out loads of bodies and burying them in the fields, and so they started basically burying the people into the walls of the basement of the hotel, and and so when they went in there, the bodies were stacked into the bottom floorboards and into the walls. They were putting them into the walls, and they would have the people write 3 letters, and so even after they died, they could continue sending letters back to their families asking for more money. This is kind of like I'm sorry, but Giuliani and that bunch, they're another group of hucksters who have sold these people who genuinely care about this country. I think that a lot of Trump people really do. They care about the country.
Right.
They're frustrated. They feel like it's not working for them. And these guys are, somebody that they can relate to, and they've kind of bought into their narrative of what needs to be done. And it's all snake oil,
Right.
It's almost like a Simpsons episode where, Bart sells somebody something and then they're like, oh, well, this will protect me from, X, Y, and Z. And then they go and do it and they're like getting crushed and then Bart's like, oh God, I really messed up this time, So, I part of you feels bad, like there was one person who got crushed, with her "Don't Tread on Me" sign, and the
irony
trampled her to death.
The irony in that, I mean, and it's funny and sad, kind of. I mean,
as irony
the joke
be,
is funny, right?
Well, how about the guy that tased himself in the balls till he had a heart attack?
Right.
I mean,
oh my God, I shouldn't laugh, but how can you not? In the balls?
The one guy that like filmed himself for like a month doing ranger training just for this special event, and then had a heart attack on the march up to the Capitol. I feel stupid like when I put on a glove and accidentally punch myself in the stomach. I can't.
I feel so mean laughing, but I can't help it.
You just, what can you do? You have to laugh to keep from crying.
Right?
Mitt Romney probably said it best when he was just like, look, part of being a leader is that you have to tell your supporters the truth, even if that's not easy. Biden won. He won. So just
move on. Get over it.
I think that's called integrity.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I was kind of surprised by the things like McConnell and Lindsey Graham were saying that night on the Senate floor, but then you realize, they're just rats jumping off the sinking boat, trying to save their own careers.
Like, speaking of rats, so when they were talking about DeVos and whatnot and Chow resigning, I'm like, my first thought was there's got to be a reason they're doing this finally now. There has to be a reason, and people were like, oh, yeah, look at this, but I'm like, there's got to be a reason. So then I finally had learned, somebody had mentioned that it's like, no, because the cabinet has to vote in order to invoke the 25th Amendment, and they didn't want to have to do that. So they're just chicken shits. There's still no redemption with them. Even on our show. No redemption.
No reality either.
I had to do a shameless plug there, guys.
See, that's why the right won't listen to our podcast, because it's reality redemption.
Right.
Two things they know nothing about.
1-2 punch. But
you have to appreciate the Lindsey Graham, because if there ever was a weather vane,
that little laugh
somebody who could. It's somebody who just really can predict, just went with he's, he goes with what direction the wind's blowing. And, when Trump was in power.
He's the sweetest lapdog ever.
Yeah. And my favorite Lindsey Graham story is that when he ran for president, his favorite thing was to go to Applebee's. And a lot of times, he just was there by himself, and he's on the campaign trail, and these campaign trails are really brutal and they're long. And so there was a reporter that wrote about the fact that he followed Lindsey Graham from Iowa to New Hampshire to the South Carolina, and that he could always find him at an Applebee's, and so the Onion did like this great cover of Lindsey Graham, hoping that the server comes back so he could have a conversation, So anyway, at Applebee's.
Do you wonder if these Applebee's that he visited, do they have like the celebrity wall where they have his picture up, Lindsey Graham's been here? Or are they too embarrassed?
They have the Lindsey Graham menu.
Hey, when he held his rallies that probably 10 people went to? I wonder if they did like that. I want my baby back, baby back, baby back.
Right. It was unlimited potato boats, So.
Hey, I don't know. I don't know why we don't call these people what they are. They were domestic terrorists.
Okay,
Terrorists.
thank you.
And speaking of domestic terrorists, Peter now lives in Tennessee, but he was from Kingman. You had interactions with the most notorious American terrorist ever, Tim McVeigh.
I did. Yeah, I did. So when I graduated, so when I was in school, and I know you guys know, you guys are good friends with Aaron Ricka, and I've known Aaron since like seventh grade. And I would like to say I think I'm the first Roadrunner that you guys have had on your show. I went to La Sanita. I don't know if did I lose audio?
Yeah, no,
No, I'm
still
there.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. So I went to La Sanita elementary school, and so we were the Roadrunners. But so when I in Kingman, when you graduate, you either had you went to college, you either went to the military, or you went down and found a job somewhere. And so I was kind of in between. I didn't have a lot of money, and so the best path for me to go to college was just go to MCC for a couple of years, Mojave Community College. And so when I did, I enrolled in there. I had an English class that went from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. And Tim McVeigh and Michael Fortier were in my class. And they sat. Tim sat behind me, and Michael Fortier was I think a couple seats over. And so they were in there. It was definitely an experience. And so Michael Fortier was a massive asshole. And I'm not exaggerating in the least. He was constantly screaming about stuff and about his rights. Our English professor, while he wasn't open, but you could kind of had a good feeling that he was probably gay. And so Michael called him out, and he called him a Democratic voting communist faggot. That was his word, not mine. That's not a word that I would use, but he called him that. And then the professor was like, "How dare you call me that?" And Michael says, "Well, are you a Democrat?" And he says, "Well, yeah, I am." He says, "Well, there you go." And
oh my God.
Yeah, he was really upfront about it. All Democrats were communists and stuff like that. I remember he carved a swastika into his hand.
Wow.
But
That's some Charles Manson shit. Jeez.
Yeah, it was. It was some meth behavior stuff. I mean, Michael was a junkie. And in between, so our class started at 6, and then it went to 9, and then in between we had an hour, like a 15-minute break. And Michael and Tim would go onto this. If you've been to MCC before, they have those trailers in the back.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we were in one of the back trailers, and they would walk out to the side, and they would smoke a joint on the side of the trailer, and it would waft into the building, and everybody would be like, "Jesus Christ!" And so I went out there, and they were smoking a joint, and I was like, "Look, everybody could smell the joint." And Michael's like telling me, he's like, "Man, fucking mind your own business." I'm like, "You know what, dude? You can do that, or you could wait until the sheriff comes by, because they patrol the parking lot, and they could fucking smell the joint."
I'm trying to help you.
Yeah, I was trying to do him a solid,
Yeah.
And so Tim was like, "Dude, let's." I'm like, "Just go to your fucking car like everybody else does here.
Right?
Smoke a joint,
Duh.
It's not hard. Have you never been on lunch break? Have you never worked at Safeway? That's what you do on your break." And so Michael got kicked out of class just for being a complete asshole. He had this one where he went on this rant about how he couldn't be expected to turn in his paperwork because he just came back from the Persian Gulf, and he was killing Arabs. And Tim would laugh about that, and I would be like, "Why is that funny to you?" And he was like, "Because Michael Fortier never left Kuwait City. He was in an office the entire time, and he was just basically lying his ass off." And so after he got kicked out, the teacher came to me, and he was like, Mike, he said, like, Tim won't let me work with him, and you guys are about the same age, and so he seems to like you. Do you mind helping him out? And so I said, sure, and the professor was like, look, he just got back from war, and we're all trying to help him out here, because obviously it was really difficult over there, and we're trying to help him adjust. He's like, but that being said, if he's really rude to you, just come and tell me, and I'll take care of it. And I think like one is just. That's something that's always stuck with me, just because the sheer humanity of this guy who was ridiculed by both of these people for being gay, for his sexual preference, something that he has no control over, still had the sense of humanity to really try to reach out to this troubled guy, and make him feel welcome and try to give him a good start at an education.
And he did. And McVeigh did have PTSD. I mean, the good on the professor for knowing that. I mean, because it did. I've watched a documentary on him, and he talked about how he wanted to sign up for the military because he liked guns and had like a huge obsession and fascination with them, like a lot of the people around here. So he wanted to, and he thought that, he would want to go over there and do that. And he said that he had to go over there and he killed people, and that he felt awful about it and started feeling bad about the United States and realizing stuff about the United States. And
yeah, like a lot of people, Tim was a complicated guy. He wanted to be a writer. He wanted to be an author. That being said, he was also a virulent racist.
Right. He's bad too. Yeah.
Yeah. He gave me his book. We got talking about Iraq and the Gulf War, and he said, the reason we went to war there is because George Bush's family owns 90% of the Kuwaiti oil. He's invested heavily in Kuwaiti oil, and I'm like, okay, that's kind of an interesting thing, and I wouldn't, probably. And then we got talking, and then it was like, the Jews control the banks, and they're trying to, they're manipulating the currency of the world, and I'm just like, whoa, like, dude,
yeah, calm down,
I'm
dude.
like, I can't really get with that, man. And they're all communists. And so he gave me this book called The Protocols of the Elders of Zion. And this is going to sound really familiar, but so there's a cabal of bankers, and they're in league with like the Hollywood elite. And they basically go out and kidnap other people's children and sell them as sex slaves and do all this other really shady stuff. And the people that are behind this are this cabal of Jewish bankers that are doing all this. If it sounds a little bit like the Q conspiracies, it's because it basically is. Like all QAnon is that rebranded.
Yeah, and he also wasn't another one of his Bibles like the Turner Diaries, and they always talk about how there's a radio show I listen to, and the host always says, yeah, it's a really poorly written book that McVeigh really based all of his shit off of.
The Turner Diaries comes down to, and he had a copy that he would carry with him of the Turner Diaries.
So yeah, like a Bible.
Yeah, a group of, and he had it highlighted and stuff like that. So the Turner Diaries is that there's this race war, and that a group of patriots who happen to be white defeat these black people that tried to overthrow, and it's the black people into the race traitors, so people that are sympathetic to racial equality. And one of the reasons they defeat them is because all the people that are not white are carrying AK-47s, which are not as accurate as the M16s, And I mean, not a whole lot of thought put into that,
No wonder the host says it's so poorly written. Okay.
yeah. So that was a big thing for him, He also he was really emotionally upset about Waco. I think he said that his ex-wife was at Waco, and the one thing that really set him off was when he was in the Gulf War. They would use phosphate and shoot phosphate rounds at targets, and when phosphate explodes, they use it kind of like an incendiary or like, to basically like a smoke grenade. But one of the side effects of phosphate is it burns like extremely hot. And when it gets on your skin, it doesn't stop burning, and it will basically burn people all the way down to the bone. Several countries have like called for it to be banned and use of warfare. The United States is like one of the only few countries that still uses it regularly. And so when they threw the flashbang grenades in at Waco, when they explode, they shoot phosphate, they shoot that powder on people. And Tim was really upset about that, and he would get just really emotional. And he would also come in he would smoke she'd smoke meth with Michael, in between breaks. I remember one time he came in and he was shaking so bad that he couldn't hold his pencil. And we had to read different passages from like these books, and the teacher was calling on him. The professor was like, okay, Tim, could you read this passage? And he couldn't read, because he was so amped up on meth. And so he would tell me, he's like, hey, I need you to read this for me. And I'd be like, okay, I'll go ahead and do that. But yeah, he was a mess. Yeah.
What was Michael Forte's role in the bombing?
So Tim was actually he wasn't from Kingman.
Yeah,
Michael was.
Right.
Tim was from outside Buffalo, New York, right? Upstate New York somewhere.
I don't know where I don't remember where he was. I know he was stationed in Fort Benning in Georgia. And I think that was probably like, the first time that he had ever been around anybody that was not white, and so it was kind of a big shock to him. But so Michael got Tim, I think, hooked on drugs. He brought Tim to Kingman, and he kind of rode with Tim all the way up until the point where Tim was going to go do the bombing, and then he kind of jumped ship, and Michael it was Michael and his wife, and Tim stayed with them, and he like slept on their couch and stuff. So.
Okay.
And isn't Michael in witness protection now?
Yeah, he did. He cut a deal, and he's off somewhere. I've got to believe that he's probably killed himself in an overdose or something like that by now. But
okay.
Yeah. I mean, when I met him, the dude was a mess, and Tim wasn't too far off, but Tim at least had aspirations. Michael's aspiration was just to get stoned and get worked. So.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Do we have anything positive to talk about?
Well,
should we go back to the lobster? Let's talk about the lobster.
Yes, we started off before we got on here. We did the lobster tail with the whiskey lemon fusion funk, and oh my God, was it delicious!
And can I just say, if our listeners have seen the movie Splash, I went Daryl Hannah on that. MJ was trying to be polite and using a fork, and I'm like, I don't really see any other way to get into this lobster other than me just breaking this with my hands and getting in there. I love food that you can eat with your hands. I love it.
And then dipping into the butter with the whiskey lemon mixed in with it. Oh, yeah. That's so delicious.
It's like that sauce was like ecstasy. If there's any people out there who still have like a water bed and you're going to like be trading it in, maybe, I don't know, just put that all over it and just like swim around in that.
We still have some of that butter left. I think after the show we're going to do shots of it.
Yeah. I want to drink it. So tasty.
Oh, man. Oh, thank you. That means so much to me. I'm glad you guys enjoy it. Yeah. I really, after being in politics, for so long, and I think the one, I've had way too many instances or experiences with terrorism, and I really needed to do something. In 2008, we were getting ready to go to the Democratic Convention, and a guy walked into our office with a gun and started shooting people, and he killed my boss.
Wow.
And I was down the hall when it started happening, and I remember thinking, like, are those balloons? And then I saw this, people screaming, and you see people running, and then you realize, nope, those are not balloons, and so we kind of barricaded ourselves in our office for a couple minutes, And then I remember opening the door, and my first instinct was like, I have to get everybody out of the office, because there had been other instances where people would walk into headquarters and just started just executing people room by room by room. And so I went in and I went and I told everybody, like, get out, get out. And I helped evacuate all my workers. And then I found my boss, who was bleeding from his head, and there was this pool of blood everywhere. And I got down, took my shirt off, and I wrapped it around his head, and I called the hospital, and anyway, just did everything I could until paramedics showed up. It was crazy because the police were clearing the room, and they got to my room. I look up, and there's a cop with his gun drawn, and I'm just like, look, man, I did not do this. I'm just trying to help. And so he was like, is there anybody else in the room? I said, no. I'm, as far as I know, I'm the only one. And anyway, he came back, they cleared the room, the paramedics showed up, and I was just so relieved because I just did not want to be there anymore. But I worked on a couple campaigns afterwards, and I was just filled with this overwhelming sense of just, that things were falling apart, and we needed to have something to bring people together. And one of the things that just, it's, especially I was living in the South at the time, and in the South, there's three things that bring people together. It's either football, it's either church, or it's food. And so food was something that I could do. I couldn't play football, and I've never been much of a church person, but I could do food, and so I just put food all too. Yeah.
I would pick food.
and I've just put all of my passion into that. I mean, so the whiskey, I worked for over a year on it, and we take the sea salt, we put it in a whiskey barrel, and then we do a cold smoke, and then it infuses the flavor of whiskey in with the salt, and then we blend that with lemon pepper, and that really gives it like a really good citrus, smoky flavor. It's kind of like a nice 1-2 punch, and so we've done that with a lot of our stuff.
Hey, let's go back. Let's go back. Let's plug the company. Bootsie's sDeltaFunk Barbecue. And do you have a website where people can order this?
Well, they can get it on Amazon, right? And if you live in Kingman, you can get it at West of 3rd. But then do you have an official website where they can buy from also?
We do. And it's www.bootsies, BOOTSIES, and you can there. And yeah, I think, you could go down there, you could buy our stuff. I was really fortunate. I met this guy who his family started making barbecue 100 years ago. And he had these sauce recipes, and then I had some ideas for seasonings, and we just kind of really formed up and started the company. And he had his brother-in-law who was with Samsung, and he'd worked in the Samsung marketing division. He did all the labels for us, and the labeling is just fantastic. It's very unique. It pops. And so, and so we've got these great recipes. Everything is all natural ingredients. It's like 100 years old, so they didn't have high fructose corn syrup. At least they didn't, they hadn't conceptualized it as of yet. So, we just kind of make things the way we made it 100 years ago, and it's just really worked for us. So.
Right. Like you can read all the ingredients. Like you can pronounce them if you're not a scientist.
We have some sitting in front of us now. We have the sweet and smoky barbecue sauce. We have the sweet heat funk, which makes spectacular air fried chicken wings.
Yes.
Those were good.
Lemon fusion funk.
We have the white sauce. That was good with the salmon.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And the white sauce I named after there's this awesome dive bar in Memphis called the High Tone Cafe, and and so that's where we got it just seemed to fit. The funk, if anyone's ever grown up in Kingman, that you do your weekends, you do the daily grind, and then you go to Laughlin for the weekend.
Yeah.
Right. And so when we were there, when I was at MCC, and my friends would all just haul ass and go to Laughlin for the weekend. Every single night ended at the Losers Lounge And there were these guys that were a couple years ahead of us in school. And I remember because in school they had like this death metal band, but they played in Laughlin and they would play funk music. And that was like, you know, like Casey and the Sunshine Band, they played the Gap Band, they played, Rick James, you know, and it was just like awesome, you know, and everybody like the best part of it was like all the, you know, girls were on the dance floor dancing, you know, and that's what you wanted to do.
Right.
You know, if you were like 21 years old, 22, is you wanted to go there and you wanted to meet some girls. And so that's like, you know, you have to have good music. And so funk music. So the funk has always stayed with me, you know, as just like the epitome of like what a good time sounds like. You know, and it's from like those nights of, you know, those weekends of going to Laughlin at like, 9:00 in the morning or 9:00 at night and not coming back home until 7 in the morning, you know, because you're at Losers all night long. So, yeah.
Losers Lounge.
What does Bootsie stand for?
So Bootsie is my partner, Adrian. That's his daughter's nickname was Bootsie.
Oh, okay.
And so he named it after his daughter, and they were, you know, he was in the Navy and he retired and moved from Chicago back to Mississippi where his family was from and where all these lines of sauces came in. And so it was me, Adrian, and then Anish, who was our other partner. He was the one that did the labeling for us. And Adrian kind of came into some financial difficulties where he just he just couldn't do the company anymore. And so he got bought out by my wife, Claire. And she came in and she bought out his stuff, and she's been really helpful for us because she has like a medical background, and so she's been able to really help out with like a lot of the cooking and, you know, just kind of mostly the organizational structure, you know, of really organizing things, and you know, she gets other nurses to come and help out, you know, if people need you know, to make some extra money on the weekends, you know, they'll come out and we'll do a production run and you know. We'll pay them and stuff like that. You know, we pay everybody $12 an hour. It's really important for me to have I wanted a company that is fun and something that brings people together. The other one is like, you know, it's a dream to be able to have a company where if your friends need some extra money, they could come and you could pay them a good wage, and, you know, they could, you know, walk away with, you know, some money in their pocket. So, yeah.
Very cool.
Well, thank you.
Hey, how hot is your hottest funk? Like on the heat index?
So the hottest funk, we were actually started off using like a smoked habanero, and I really liked it, but our supplier closed down and we couldn't get it anymore. And so the only stuff that I could get my hands on was the scorpion pepper that clocks in like at 1,000,000 Scoville. And we kind of taper it down and get it down to about 500,000. In the hot sauce, because 1,000,000 is like way too much. But the hot is
sounds hot.
We actually screwed up. We were looking for ways to cut costs and save ourselves some money. And so we said, you know what, we're going to make our own hot sauce, and that will help out with all this other stuff. And so we made it, and it was like hottest funk. And I'm like, guys, what are we going to do with, like, we had like 12 cases of this unbearably hot barbecue sauce, and so we just that's how the hottest funk came into being. Is it was a screw up, and we just slapped the label on it and started selling it. You're like, well, this is the hot version, guys, you know. So
I love hot stuff though.
Yeah,
it took off. Yeah. You've got a bottle coming to you. It should arrive, I think.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's like I want to try it still, even though it's hot.
Well, that'll be next weekend. We'll prep something with that.
I might hurt myself in the morning, but I'll probably enjoy it while I eat it.
A lot of stuff, you know, again, for anything that's awesome, there's always women involved. And so on that, Adrian's wife is Indian, you know, she's from South Asia, Indian. And she got a hold of these sauces and really started tampering them with them. And so the way we make Bootsies is almost like an Indian dish, you know, where it's very layered, and layer by layer. We take the spices and we express them in oil and just kind of heat them up to get the maximum flavor out of everything. We use whole spices and we grind them. We do a fresh grind. So again, we maximize the flavor potential out of everything. And when we build the layers of the barbecue sauce, it's funny because it actually works in reverse. And so the last thing we add to the sweet and smoky is honey. we have a local honey apiary that we buy 80 gallons at a time. And so when it hits your palate, the first thing that goes is the last ingredient, which is honey. So the honey kind of melts on your palate, and then all of a sudden you get this flavor explosion, and it just takes off in your mouth, and I always kind of compare it to like Sly and the Family Stone. They have that song, I Want to Take You Higher. I wanted a flavor profile that was going to be like that. And so it just rocket ships off there. The one thing about the hop though, is that the honey kind of encapsulates the hot. And then when it dissolves, your mouth's on fire and you're like hurting and you're in pain. And
we're going to test it.
All of a sudden it's gone. And you're like, hey, okay.
Test it out.
Snow's going to melt.
Yes. Bye, Snow.
I'm melting.
What a wicked world. What a wicked world.
Right?
Tell me about the crab cakes so Snow can hear about that. We were talking about that.
I like crab cakes.
So I have a friend of mine that's from Chesapeake Bay. And if everybody knows that Chesapeake Bay is, and especially Baltimore and the Baltimore, Maryland area, is like that. That's like that's the capital.
I've driven through there.
Yeah,
and it's beautiful.
I used to live in Virginia Beach, so I was right there on the bay.
Okay.
So I've got a recipe, and it calls for like some lump crab meat, definitely from claw, which is like the best. And you mix it in with all these different ingredients, and you add in a little bit of the white barbecue sauce, and then you put it in this big bowl, and then you put it in the oven for 30 minutes, and there's like cheese involved, and then you like get like an ice cream scooper, and you scoop it out, and then you just there you go, there's your cake, and you can either pound it flat, or add a little breadcrumbs. Personally, I don't like breadcrumbs in my crab cakes, but if you do, you can add a little bit in there, and it's awesome. It's really, really good.
Sounds good.
And so you can make a sandwich out of it. You can just have it just straight as that. You can pound it flat and then bake it a little bit more, and you'll have like a nice little crispy cake, or do like a little bit of fry on it. So there's a lot of different options there, but it is so good.
We got to get a hold of some crab meat.
I'm hungry again.
Some crabs.
Yeah.
I'm sure we can have some shipped in.
Yeah.
Part of the benefit of owning a food company is that I have a membership to this warehouse, and the warehouse is all over the country, and one of them is in Las Vegas, and so I can get in there and I can get wholesale prices of bulk items, and this stuff is it's like the Costco of delicious food. Like there's like this wheel of like
we know what we're doing next time you're in town.
Right.
See, that's what I told you guys. I'm like, look, hold off. Wait until I visit. I will.
When are you coming?
I will. I know. I will get you some some delicious like dill infused Havarti. And
Havarti's the bomb.
Party. Yeah. I'll come rolling in with like a wheel of cheese. So,
yes.
We've been trying to figure out a way to make money on this podcast.
Yes.
We could sell tickets to this.
Yeah. Folks,
the podcast event of the year, right?
Yeah. Well, and at least if anybody that, thinks that, like I'm some sort of crazy socialist, our barbecue does, I know, right? You could be right. But we do, some of the stuff that I really like doing is we go down to Oxford and we raise money for the Oxford PD, and we do we join up with local fraternities and sororities there, and we basically do ribs and pork shoulder, and all the money goes to the Oxford Police Department so they can buy new equipment, and we do stuff for the fire department all the time, and
cool.
Again there's barbecue brings people together, and it's something I think that. Anthony Bourdain said that barbecue might not be the road to peace, but it's a good start. And it's just, if you can have people together at a table, I know, if you can have people together at a picnic table, just sitting down and that, I think you're going to see that sense of community. Have some music there. All of a sudden, it won't matter if you're a Trump supporter or a Biden supporter. You're a food supporter, and I think people need to take a moment to sit down and have a discussion like we used to. You know,
we should be saying we're here to support barbecue. Fuck fuck our other beliefs. This is what it's about. You're allowed to talk about barbecue. You're allowed to talk about music. You're allowed to talk about movies.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah, I mean,
and cocktails. You can always talk about cocktails. All right.
That's right. Well, you're gonna have drinks.
Yeah. Deep down, you know, when you're walking around town, for the most part, you don't, unless you're dressed in the gear, you don't look at people like, oh.
I know. Are you walking downtown going? That's a Democrat. Are you a Trump supporter? Or are you like you're not doing that anyway?
No, you just pass them, say, hey, how you doing? Have a nice day.
How are you?
You know.
Yeah. Right.
We need to get back to that.
And you know, I think we just don't recognize the humanity in each other. You know, my boss that was killed, you know, he used to take his kids to go to the movies. He had 2 young children, and he would take them to the movies every weekend. You know, that was something that he did. You know, he was a guy that, you know, he owned multiple car dealerships. He was very affluent and well-to-do, but he did stuff like that. You know, and we don't see people anymore. I think there's and I think that's part of a financial grift that's out there where it's just so much easier to see somebody as being like some sort of evil cabal. It's harder to see somebody as an evil cabal when you know that they spend time with their daughter, you know, throwing ball with her and stuff like that. And, you know, those are the kind of things that you see, you know, in the South. You know, barbecue was usually at a big event, you know, something big was happening, and there was 4th of July in Austin. There is like one of the biggest barbecue events ever, and everybody comes together in Austin, Texas, and they eat barbecue, and then they go and watch fireworks, you know, and they throw the football around, and you know, we need to get back to that.
Yeah. We do. Amen.
That's my prescription.
We're all in this together, one big community.
Right.
Yeah.
You know.
Sorry if I've been yawning a couple of times, because I feel like I had lobster Thanksgiving. I'm all sleeping
I don't know about you, but I'm still hungry.
Oh, really?
You know, it's funny because like I'll message Snow, and it's like 8:00, and I'll be talking to her, and then all of a sudden she's out. Like it's a canary. You know? It's like I'll be like, hey,
like light switch.
Yeah. Oh, and then she's like responding to me, and she's like, "Did you see that movie?" And it's like she got to the MOV, and then it's out. You know.
So all right.
I
don't know.
I told her she needs to watch True Blood. I'm like, you need to watch True Blood, and she like started the first 15 minutes of it and then fell asleep.
I know. I did start watching it, and I did really like it. I need to get back to it because now, well, I'm sure it's on HBO Max. But then right when I got back into HBO Max, so it pops up that Adam Ruins Everything is in there. So I had to finish my binge on that, you know? Like Netflix only carries season 1 of it, and there's 2 more seasons.
I was too busy.
Squirrel.
I was too busy picking Cobra Kai.
Oh, yeah. I know there's like so much to watch. Who has the time?
Yeah. Well, I have plenty of time right now.
No, well, yeah. I won't have time till February. That's when things might slow down a little.
Yeah.
Hey, Pete, this is really good having you on, and I'm sure we could go on and on, but we'll have you back on again.
Yeah, and when are you coming? When are you coming to Kingman? And hooking us up with the gourmet Costco stuff.
You know, my parents, you know, I grew up, I was born in Kingman. I grew up on Irving and Sierra Vista. And if anybody, you know, remembers what Irving and Sierra Vista was like, it was not a nice thing. But yeah, I mean, I grew up there, you know, so my parents still live in Kingman, you know, so I go back. I used to go back at least twice a year, you know, or try to. Because of the pandemic, I haven't been able to do that.
Yeah.
You know, there's I can't even imagine going into a cylinder tube and flying across the country without being inoculated first, you know. So
yeah, I'm waiting for the vaccine too.
How are your numbers out there in Tennessee as far as that goes?
Terrible.
Well,
Tennessee's one of the worst states.
Well, we're number 1.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, maybe Arizona won now, but Tennessee was the worst.
Well, we were, and if you break it down into parts per billion, like how many people per million, I think North Dakota, South Dakota, 1 and 2, we're like in the top. We're in the top 10. I know. Again, my wife, she's a physician, and she works at a clinic in Memphis, and she'll call me and say, like, don't go outside, don't talk to anybody, just get in your car and go straight home. She's like, I've had 20 patients, and 18 of them are positive. And the one thing that really gets me is when this first started, I think we all know this guy, and it was like, well, I had this disease back in
November,
and
before it even got here, I had it.
I know, and you're like, right. Well, I already had it. I don't need to wear a mask. She had a guy that came in, and he had been positive, and he came in after Christmas, and he was positive again. Wow. And she was like, well, she's like, you're positive, you got to go home. And he's like, no. I had this back in July. And she's like, well, guess what, buddy? You got it again.
This is round 2, bud.
I know, two-time winner. Right. And he was pissed. He was like, well, this is bullshit. There's no way I could have it again. I already had it. Well, let me explain some things called antibodies.
They wear off.
Endless, but yeah, this isn't Olive Garden, buddy. It's not all you can eat. Breadsticks. The antibodies go away.
Well, science.
Which I saw that somebody ran a prank that Olive Garden had revoked Sean Hannity's pass for endless pasta, and Sean Hannity spent an entire hour on the show yelling at Olive Garden, about how dare they revoke his pasta.
Oh my God!
It was a joke. It wasn't even serious. So.
Well, did you hear? Before we wrap up, I saw Hannity last night. He was going off on Anderson Cooper because Anderson Cooper said that people that broke into the Capitol are now free to go home, and they would probably be stopping at Olive Garden and Holiday Inn. And instead of the outrage about what happened at the Capitol, Hannity was going off about Anderson Cooper complaining about Olive Garden and Holiday Inn.
I know.
Oh my God. How petty. Like, what?
Yeah.
It's just smoke and mirrors.
What is wrong with you?
Yeah. If you really want to have a good time, Google or go to YouTube and look up Sean Hannity and karate. And so Sean Hannity wanted to prove how tough he was and how he could beat people up. And so he went and did all these MMA stuff. And it's like literally watching like the first 20 minutes of like the foot fist way, And it's so hilarious.
Hannity used to be decent way back because he used to be a guest on a show that I listened to, Opie and Anthony, and he was even keeled. I don't know what happened to him over the years.
Making all that money changes a guy.
I'm gonna say it's got to be money that.
Well, you get in bed with Donald Trump, it ruins you.
Yeah.
Well, okay, Pete, we got to wrap this up. Getting low on batteries on my recorder here. But it was great having you on finally. We wanted to have you on for quite a while.
Yeah.
And we're definitely going to have you on again.
And I love the shows where we get to eat. They're the best.
Yeah, we'll have to get more. Hey, on your website, do you have recipes on there?
We do. Yeah. So if you like, not as many as we should. That's one of the things that I'm going to do better than the New Year's is I'm going to start doing more recipes. So yeah. And you guys, thank you so much for having me on. I listened to all your shows, and it's great. It's so hard to listen to your stuff because I just want to say, I'm yelling at the radio,
Yes, it's working then. Yes.
Yeah.
Success.
Wait. Are you yelling with us or are you yelling at us?
No, I'm yelling in agreement. And it's also, it honestly, it feels like, it feels like you're at a bar somewhere catching up with people, especially when like Rick is on and I hear him, talking and stuff like that. It just reminds me of, being at the Sundowner and just like, throwing back a few long necks and just catching up on stuff. So yeah, it's great to be a part of it. So thank you so much.
Thank you for the compliment.
Oh, thank you.
We appreciate it.
No problem.
All right. And if you want to talk about your Bootsies again last time.
One more plug on it
for your sauces and spices.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, yeah.
You want me to give a plug?
Plug.
You're probably better. You're better at it.
Yeah.
So, definitely check us out. We've been doing this for about 4 years. We've won some awards. I think our stuff's pretty good. It's all natural, which is important. And, it's if you want to taste some deep Southern Delta food, it's definitely the way to do it. And make sure you bring in some family members and friends, and throw on some music and do a barbecue.
Yes, and we do have a lot of listeners here in Kingman, so it is available at West of 3rd. Go down and see Sarah Ferry.
Yes.
Okay, and also available on Amazon and your website, which is... Go ahead.
Bootsies, BOOTSIES, BBQ.com. And I'm always going to tell you guys, support local. West of Third has been really good to us, and they've just been so supportive. And they share with me all the stories of people coming in and talking about different recipes they try, and it just means so much to me when I hear those stories. So support local, then buy from me, and then at the last thing, if you absolutely need it, and it's a pinch, order from Amazon.
Right. Yeah. Amazon last resort. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, but thank you so much, guys. I can't wait to listen to this. I'll probably be I'm going to be so nervous.
You'll be fine.
Yeah, and, I'll send you the links and post it. And for our listeners out there, we're on Apple, we're on Spotify, we're now on Pandora, Google Podcast.
And we're on Amazon also.
Amazon Music too.
Yeah, we are on that too. Last resort no.
I listen to you guys. I have you guys queued up on my Spotify. So yeah.
All right.
Cool. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, and so to the listeners, follow us on Instagram, Reality Redemption, Facebook page. Leave us feedback there, and Pete, we will talk to you soon. Okay.
All right, brother. Thank you, man. I appreciate y'all.
All right. Thank
Bye.
you. All right. Bye.
Bye, y'all.